It absolutely blew me away how many of you requested a review of NZXT's S340 case. That is, until I watched the promotional video for it on NZXT's YouTube channel. What is this nonsense, NZXT? Your video contains no information about the case. So I get it now. I understand why you're here watching my video. You'd like to know more than this about the S340. So here we go. Corsair Gaming RGB keyboards feature precision Cherry MX RGB key switches for 16.8 million color per key backlighting for virtually unlimited customization. Click now to learn more. Okay, blah-de-blah, NZXT's packing materials, they kind of suck. 2 out of the 7 Newegg reviews mention shipping damage, but NZXT doesn't seem to care, so I'll just quickly mention closed cell foam and how great it is, rather than waxing philosophical about it for 5 minutes, and then we can move on. For the case itself, we'll start as usual with an exterior tour. At the front, we find a flat, solid piece of glossy black sheet steel with an NZXT logo stamped in the bottom, and otherwise nothing of note. On the right side, we find, well, pretty much the same thing, but with no NZXT logo stamped this time. On the left side, we find more of the same, but this time with a window. And then finally on the top, aside from the 2 USB 3 ports, steel-plated audio jacks, an illuminated power button, and an up to 140mm fan slot with an included 120mm fan, more metal. But this time with a regrettably much less scratch-resistant matte finish on it. It won't be a deal breaker if you don't regularly store stuff carelessly on the top of your case, but for those who do, well, you might need to learn to be a bit more careful because it does scratch quite easily. At the back, we find the second of the 2 included 120mm fans, this time in a 120mm only mount, 7 vented PCI expansion slots with exposed thumb screws for easy access, and a power supply mounting bracket that's removable and features the same captive thumb screws that you'll find on the side panels. I love these captive thumb screws. They're an awesome inclusion because I hate losing case screws. On the bottom of the case is the least exceptional power supply fan filter ever, and some nice tall rubber-bottomed feet that keep the case up for better airflow and keep your power supply from dying if you install it fan side down and then put your case onto a carpet. Finally, around to the front again for a moment, we'll pop off that bezel to find a much better, this time actually magnetic, fan filter for those front fan mounts that support either dual 120 or dual 140mm fans, and a matching radiator. These fans should have great access to fresh air through the bottom that I mentioned before, as well as the open slot at the top of the front bezel. Opening up the case, we find that NZXT has done a great job of hiding the cost-saving measures that make this case so affordable and providing an equally surprising number of little extras that customers will enjoy. I mean, sure, the PCI thumb screws are just open there, and that was a bit of a cost-saving measure, and the paint finish is internally that matte finish, not super durable, but all the edges are rounded to protect your wires and fingers. The entire inside, even all the wires, is black. The motherboard standoffs are pre-installed with a post in the middle one that holds your board in place while you screw in the rest, and you even get that sweet stealth PSU cover from the H440, albeit without the illuminated logo. I think the most striking thing about the interior is how spacious it seems, in spite of the case's small size. Instead of filling up the front with drive mounts, it's taken up entirely by the radiator mounting points, although it should be noted that dual 120mm rads will have some orientation flexibility, but dual 140mm rads go in this way only, and a top to bottom, or top to basement at least, shield that seems to serve 2 purposes. One as a structural support, and second as a stealth cable management cover. Great idea. Speaking of cable management, all the main bases are covered with non-grommeted holes around the motherboard tray in sensible places to pass through fan connectors and the 8-pin EPS connector on the top, and spots on the bottom for front 3-panel USB, audio, and buttons, and the SSD connectors for the two 2.5-inch mounts that are on top of the Stealth basement cover. This SSD mounting is a carryover from the H440 that I'm really happy to see, because I think it looks nice, but in the event that you want a graphics card in the second slot from the bottom, or even some single width cards in the bottom slot, you may find yourself needing to use the other drive mounting points that I didn't like nearly as much. Built into the front bottom of the case is either a 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch mount that is accessed by sliding the drive in from the side, then screwing it in from the bottom, and then above that one is two more 3.5-inch mounts that are only sturdy enough if you ignore NZXT's instructions to only screw in your drives from the front of the case, and make sure you screw them in from the inside as well. Something you'll need to either remove your power supply for or find a stubby screwdriver in order to do. None of these mounts include any anti-vibration mounting, making them, in my mind, the weakest part of the design of this case. Back to strengths though, in spite of the narrow width and therefore limited cable management space behind the motherboard tray, NZXT managed to make it super easy to build a clean looking machine in here. To go along with the ample CPU cutout for cooler installation, they've got tons of cable management loops back here. Easy, logical routes to follow for most of the normal connections, and that brace/cable cover thing does an amazing job of providing room to hide the 24-pin SATA, data, and this was a happy accident, but on this board, right angle USB 3, giving the rig the appearance of having had a lot of time spent on cable routing, when really, I spent no extra time at all. So I guess that leads us well into the conclusion for this surprisingly compact ATX tower. Well, there's no real innovation here. I mean, the Antec Sonata did the whole piano, black, glossy finish, normal square box at a reasonable price thing over 10 years ago. NZXT executed the concept incredibly well for less than you'd expect. As always, there's a pricing link in the video description. You get a case that feels reasonably sturdy. NZXT advertises it as 90% metal, supports as much hardware as most gamers and even enthusiasts are realistically going to put in their rigs, and looks surprisingly classy, even if it's not quite up to the level you might expect from NZXT's promotional videos and images when you see it in person. So for delivering great value at a low price, I'm pleased to award the NZXT S340 my third STDs award for being something that doesn't suck. Looking for a case, and this one fits your budget perfectly? You've got my blessing. Go ahead and pull the trigger. Guys, like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, leave a comment if your feelings are more complicated than this. Also check out the link in the video description. You can buy a cool t-shirt like this one, give us a monthly contribution, or change your Amazon bookmark to one with our affiliate code, so every time you buy cases or whatever else it is you buy on Amazon, we get a small kickback. That kind of stuff helps us out a ton. Thanks again for watching, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.